Oh boy, listeners, wait for this. You guys have 18% of the households in Estonia.
I think one of the really good goals that we just set was like 100,000 subscriptions. This was the number. This is where we're heading. A clear number, like everybody in the company knew this is the goal, this is the number that we're heading towards.
Ivar Krustok, Chief AI and Innovation Officer at Delfi Media, shares how his team built one of the most successful subscription models in use in the world. And the result, 18% of Estonian households subscribe, far ahead of global benchmarks. What did you guys do right that the rest of the industry hasn't figured out? I can tell you how much it means to me that you're tuning into this episode of Inside Shapes News by Kilkaya. This podcast is all about conversation with those shaping the future of news and journalism on topic that really matters. Now, I want to make a little deal with you. I'll promise I'll keep working to make these episodes better and better. And if you could just do me this small favor to follow, like, or subscribe wherever you're listening into this episode, that would mean the world to me and allow me to continue producing this. Now, onto the podcast. So, Ivar, I am actually gonna get up now the big screen here, because I think maybe for some of the people listening into this, they maybe don't know even where Estonia is on the map. So we're having Google Maps here, and then maybe some of them listening to this that don't have the video here, what we're doing right now is that we're looking at the world. I'm zooming in at Norway, where I'm based, and Europe, and Estonia. How would you explain it? Is then south of Finland, exactly. North of Latvia.
That's what we are saying. We are ignoring a big part of the map and saying we're south of Finland, because that usually makes it easier, because most people know where Finland is.
Exactly, and I think so. And then we have the capital here, Tallinn, and you live in this place, Kelia, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Correct. And I've been actually able to be at your place to enjoy some good pizza, because you don't just have talent in media, you also then are a very talented guy making pizza.
Yes, as I mentioned to you, for everybody listening, that's basically the best city in Estonia. So if anybody plans to move to Estonia, then Keila is the best place to actually move in Estonia.
We just need to get it out there, since we didn't plan this at all to say that. But if we also look a little bit, because I'm looking a little bit of the data, and then you might correct me if I'm the world meter here, but I'm seeing at the moment, the population of Estonia is around 1.3 million people, around that. And if we then just look into Estonia, what I've learned is that it's a complete digital powerhouse, whether it's e-governance, numbers of startup unicorns per capita. You guys thrive when others in the world don't have the same capability. What is it with Estonia that makes you so great?
Yeah, to start off, not with even history, I would say, just to start off, last week or 2 weeks ago, Estonian government and our president and everybody announced that we'll have AI master classes in partnership with OpenAI in actually high schools already. So this is sort of the next phase of our, let's say, we call it a digital tiger. And this sort of digital tiger movement already started in the 90s. So even when I was in the first, second grade or around there, so 97, 98, we already had computers in the classroom. We already had I think from the third or fourth grade already we had classes where they would teach you how to use the computer. And it was in Estonian case, of course, a lot of this was sort of given as sort of foreign aid. So in a lot of cases this came in from a lot of this really, really focused people who worked a lot to get this sort of technology into the hands of really young people in Estonia, to make sure we start from as low as possible. So that means when these people grew up, or when these few people had access to all of this technology, then as we see from Estonia, like really great things started happening, like the first sort of Estonian unicorn, Skype. Soon we can say rest in peace to Skype again. Another announcement that was just basically just made, but we're really proud of it. And the other sort of side was that because and we don't want, another thing that we don't want to really say is like former Soviet country, because we still think as ourselves as an independent country, and we've been like this for 107 and so on and plus years, and we should even call it even longer, because like Estonia is quite unique from the people and everything, and we didn't have like history, we didn't have like huge databases of like paper documents, we didn't have credit cards, we didn't have all of these sort of things, we were totally missing. And then like again, I'm really thankful for all the people, like they decided, okay, should we follow everything that was done, or should we go with the thing that we think is like the next step? And I think like the decision that they made, like, okay, let's ignore what has been done and let's think what is the next thing, next big thing. And a lot of those things were digitize everything just to make them faster, just to optimize it. So I think sort of that's where it all began. Like first giving computers to really young people to make sure that they disrupt, they know they can do, and the other is just because we didn't have a long history of like a long paper trail. So that means everything was new and everything was next level.
How do you think that sort of then shaped the media industry as of today? Because both you and me are millennials, but then from that time to also now, how has that sort of shaped the digital media industry?
I think sort of, and again, I think I was born in a really good time space, or like even Estonia, because I was sort of in the let's say transition phase. So like even I remember from my childhood, even like a lot of the channels that I still got were Finnish channels, and like I know from my parents, from everybody. So like this, we're influenced a lot by Finnish media actually. And sort of, I think that's a really good thing, because Finnish media has always been quite strong, like even paper-wise and all of these. Like Estonia has like similar sort of like years when everybody else was already struggling with like print. Then like Finnish and like Estonia, it came later, because Estonia was still like sort of trusting media, or the information that they wanted, the information that they I don't want to say needed, but sort of they felt like they should be informed. And I think sort of this background also helps us when we moved into the digital era of things.
You also told me before that you see Estonia sort of as the new Nordic. Being a person coming from Norway, Nordic, what does it mean, and how is this sort of mindset impacting the way businesses is now operating in Estonia?
Yeah, it's this sort of if you can't get in a club, you create your own club, and you call it new, because then everybody else wants to join as well. But I think it's sort of I think it goes back again to like and I'm sort of myself also like really thankful for like let's say Finland, and I think that sort of comes a bit from there rather than let's say the other Nordic countries and everything like that, because Estonia, like let's say Estonia doesn't really compare themselves to other, let's say, Eastern European countries that like that have a similar background to us, and we're always like constantly comparing ourselves to Finland, who has a really different like historical background, their independence, how like years and years, like how much more they had like time to like let's say like expand, or expand in a like infrastructure, expand in a like economy ways and all of these sort of things. Like they just had a really long runway, but Estonia has always been like everything. We're always comparing ourselves to Finnish, even though like our runway is so much shorter. But that sort of always means that we have to like do everything twice, three times as good, because we want to get to that point rather than comparing ourselves to, let's say, even partners. And I think sort of the new Nordic comes from sort of that like, let's say, logic or space, because we are really close, especially to Finnish, but same for like Nordics, Danish and Swedish, because just last year when I was I went to a study tour with One Ifra. Again, really recommend not only like what One Ifra is sort of doing with like where you're going, but the people you meet there. And basically like the first like groups always like we joked that we had it was a school field trip, and you know, all the time like these groups sort of form like instantly, like you. And then of course there was this, and now I call it New Nordic group, where it was me, a Swedish guy, and a Danish guy, and Swiss person, and like it was like constant, like okay, and then like after each sick, like people, there was like South American guys, the Nordic guys, and like this is sort of like you still like I don't know. In Estonia we have a saying, a dog finds a dog. I think it's sort of similar. That's why we are like focused on getting there into the Nordics.
I can completely understand that, because I've been on some of the study tours as well, both with INMA and OneInfo, and it's absolute great way to understand either industries, if it's then Silicon Valley in the US, or then going to meet the publishers. It's a great way, but you also find people, and the bonds that you build together is absolutely amazing. But I also just came back from Finland, that you mentioned actually, and spent 2 days there and been talking with quite a lot of publishers, and it's amazing what's happening there on the tech part in terms of both personalization of the readers and then how they work. So I think it's always good to then sort of compare yourself and wanting to do that, and I absolutely do that. But then it also seems like with the infrastructure being completely new, you had the means to then sort of go your way in terms of Estonia and then find out how do we want to digital, because I completely see how Estonia has become a digital powerhouse in terms of a lot of things happening, and it's absolutely amazing. Now, Ivar, I want to get into a little bit of what we're here to talk about, and that is your success at Delfi with subscription. Before we get into that, and how we then get into the details about how we became such a global leader in digital subscription, and probably the listeners also want to understand, you have a very fancy title, Chief AI and Innovation Officer. Damn, that is really fancy. What was your journey getting into that?
I got all the keywords for SEO.
You got all the keywords, and I remember one time asking this when there was a topic at the INMA where you had all the C-level up there talking about AI, and I asked the question, are you guys going to hire a chief AI officer? And people, a little bit early, but I think you already had this title before I asked the question. So talk a little bit into how you got into sort of Delfi, the media world, and how you got to this fancy title.
Yeah. So I actually have more, let's say, on the media agency background. So, and I still like, and I really like to share my story, how I got into it, because I really, really randomly got into it, because I studied IT, and if you're studying IT, you get a lot of job offerings. So in my school in particular, like we had a weekly email of like, okay, these are the companies that are looking for people to get it, like work for them. And then OMD sent digital media planner. And now it was 15 years or something, like already 15, 14 years or something like that. I had no idea what a digital media planner is. And I thought I was going to do Flash banners and Flash websites because I studied Flash. I bet on the wrong horse, but it's fine. I still think Flash was really great for advertising, really bad for everything else.
And, Flash, rest in peace.
Yes. And basically 30 minutes into the job interview, I finally understood that I'm not going to do banners and I'm not going to do IT work. And it took me 30 minutes of that meeting to understand it. And I was like, yeah, this meeting is not going well. Like, I will not get this job. And I was already like, okay, fine. And then 1st of April, somebody called me, and I really like my first boss, like really, really chill guy. But it was like, really like monotonic, calling me like, yeah, so yeah, if you wanted to get this job like it's 1st of April, I was like, yeah, sure, like yeah, like come on Monday, like next Monday, yeah, you got the job, like it's like, yeah, okay. Like first job, like I mean, I worked in like when I was a kid, like factory or something, like like the factory kid worker, and then basically I got the job, and like I got into the market. I think at the like best time in Estonia, because when I entered the like media field, like Facebook in our region was new, Google in our region was new, and there weren't people who were doing it, and sort of like if you work in a really large agency and you're the only person who does this, like then you get all the like really nice clients who have like budgets, like you don't get that with just only clients. And I got it like budget for Nissan, like, and we got the international help, like how to do Google trainings, like different platform accesses, because like you were in the OMD infrastructure, but you were doing it in a market where like nobody else was doing this sort of thing. And I like at one point sort of, because I was still like for years and years I was the only person who was doing it, like I had like huge volume of budget, because year over year growth in a market that's basically new and just really fast growing. I had like I remember like client budgets, and it seemed like really weird. Like I was like 21 and they're like, okay, so here's like 60,000 euros, go spend it. Like, and you're like, okay, yeah. So you're trusting some like 20-ish something to spend like money and know what he's doing. And like, I didn't know in a lot of cases what I was doing, but like I was eager to learn. And so years and years I worked in on like understanding how media works, understanding like where the audience is, like working a lot with data, working a lot to get to know these things, because like again it was growing, and so you had to learn like constantly and constantly, and you didn't have like large media planning teams for the digital part. So years and years, then like a few startups and everything. And then because again, I talked with all of these people in the house, and at what point they were like, okay, maybe you should like come to this side of the business, because like how advertisers work, how like how users behave, how to get engagement, how to get sort of these sort of things. And then I sort of stepped into a role where it was a mix of like data uh, and setting everything there up, and then working with clients, like advertising clients then. And let's say years passed, and then at one point I was given the role to like take the development team over. So that means I started working with people who built Delfi's like front page. And I would say thanks to all the people here, like I was again in a really really good place, because like we have a split of like central team, Pete who runs that team, and we sort of had to do everything from zero again, because at one point we decided, okay, we have huge volume of legacy and we have to like redo everything. And again, then I was again, it's the mix of like luck and hard work sort of. And then usually when you try to work hard, at least, then luck usually comes. And then we had to do everything again. So like most of Delphi, even if it for the end user seems like it's the same thing, then everything is sort of built up from scratch again. And at one point, because I'm more of a chaotic person, and I really like that other people around me aren't that chaotic, because somebody has to do all the like Git issues, all the planning, everything, love all the people that are doing this. But I'm not that person, sort of. I want to sort of build it quickly, throw it out there, and see how it works. So tracking to everything and see like, okay, it's a fail, like kill it or improve it, or I don't know, or success. Always have to plan for success as well. And now, because then at this point, because I was sort of, I wouldn't say like bored, but sort of frustrated with the speed of how development today works. Not in a bad way, but in a way that like, and we have to take care of this, like, because we have massive volume of users and we have to make sure that everything is stable. And I totally get it, but the process to get something live was like quite quite lengthy, and I think this is sort of a problem in a lot of cases. And then I was more interested in doing everything in a, let's say, separate manner, in a smaller scale, and let's say failing fast sort of method, where now I have a small team, and then sort of AI was thrown in there because it's easy to experiment. It's much easier to build a lot of things. It's like, and I think now I'm in a good place where it's similar to when I started, because like I don't know, next week probably there will be something new out again, and I don't know, I might have to redo something because I don't know. I don't know what's the next thing, or what will happen in 2 weeks or in a year. And I think that's sort of the fun part. And I think I was again like sort of in media landscape, I would say like the third time again when I was in a right time, in a place, in a right mindset to sort of move into a role where the idea is to just test out. Because again, I talk to many publishers, and sort of same testing goes on everywhere, same sort of things go, and nobody knows like what's the like real value. And I think it will be a few, like I don't want to say maybe a few years, but I think a lot of experiments that we're doing in media houses today will understand the real value of these things probably later than like sooner, I think.
And I think we're going to get into some of the details, but I think one of the things that you mentioned here is being willing to do testing. In this industry, it's very easy to sort of get caught up on trends. There's a trend here and so on. But I sometimes like to quote the Pitbull, Mr. 305, is that small step, long vision. That's how you can also get into it. I think that's very important in that case. But you're talking about how you got into sort of then media agency. Same thing, MediaCom, getting to understand sort of then how you spend the money and getting your hands on that big dollars as a 25 something and then going to spend it. It was interesting at the time, but it's absolutely incredible, and I'm seeing sort of how your mentality is around testing. But for the audience that do not know Delfi, where you work today, can you just shortly explain who Delfi is and sort of like the audience and what sort of content you produce for your audience today?
Yeah, sure. Let's say Delphi, like if you're talking about it wider, like we're part of Express Group, and we're the largest, let's say, digital media publication in the Baltics. So in each three countries, we're basically the market leader. We have really strong competition, not only from like, let's say, public, but also private sector. So in each market, we have a really good competitor, and I think that's one of the things that's driving us. The audience that we're looking at, because we try to sort of work with work is a bad word in this case, but we try to cater to as wide of an audience as possible. So like of course there are trends that are influencing, like at the moment like Trump is taking like half of the front page of the news, but we're trying to do sort of everything, so everybody in Estonia should find something that they're interested in reading. So I would say this is like our main audience. So everybody.
Yeah, got it. Getting into sort of the main topic of why we're speaking here is that when many brands today, meaning news publishers, struggle just to get past the 1% of households with digital subscription, oh boy, listeners, wait for this. You guys have 18% of the households in Estonia. That's way ahead of global benchmarks. What did you guys do right that the rest of the industry hasn't figured out?
I think again, thank you. And I try to always say that we have the largest penetration on like the market that we are on, and I think we're still number one. Inma at least has sort of confirmed that we're number one, and I haven't heard nobody challenging them. And before I get into what we are doing, right, just to make sure that like we're in a market where yes, we have a really nice percentage, but our competitor, like a private other private company, they have like 12% or something like that, like on this benchmark. So like they're doing a really good job as well. So this must mean that like it's a lot to do with the market, but I don't wanna like like we had a role, of course, our team. Like one thing that I think is really, really strong is the team that we have here. Uh, People are allowed to experiment. People are allowed to, like, sort of, if they want to do something. I think in our case, like, these people can do it. They can take responsibility and they can actually do it. And I haven't seen like the people who we are working with, like the people who are actually delivering this, like in most cases, like a lot more, actually doing a lot more work than I'm doing. I'm just sort of the messenger of how well our team is working. But I think the first thing that comes down to, of course, is the content. We take that as central fold. But I think that alone, of course, isn't everything, and I think it's a lot to do with like systematically working on it, like increasing the paywall percentage, making it easy for people to understand how well their work is like going, having really like I would say like different types of KPIs. So things that we are spreading around the company. Like I think one of the really good goals that we just set was like 100,000 subscriptions. This was the number. This is where we're heading. A clear number, like everybody in the company knew this is the goal. This is the number that we're heading towards. Rather than talking about time spent and average reader or something, recirculation, like all of these keywords that like in meetings you can see like in reality they don't know what the like benchmark there is.
Here is a lot of numbers. Let's put it in a dashboard, and I hope people understand it. It's yeah, it's there.
Yeah, and from my side, like at one point, because I do the data side and put the dashboards, like, okay, my team again, my team. I want to emphasize that a lot of times, like my team is in this case, so they're doing the work, heavy lifting, and like I see the number of people who are using dashboards because I have a dashboard for dashboards, and I know how much people are actually spending time on this dashboard that is really, really interesting. And we really need it in order to move to the next step. And then I'm looking at the numbers of how much it's actually used. And then I'm like, guys, come on.
But I think you're getting into really important things here. One thing is then definitely having the right content. But then, as you said, like, I think a lot of publishers out there work with sort of the saying North Star metric, which would be then the 100,000, the 200,000, like a number that everybody can understand. I don't know who said it, but it was one of the events, for example, with data and insights, and we'll get to that later in the podcast, is that something has to be understood, it has to be measurable, and it just needs to be very clear for everybody. So that's sort of the part. But then subscription is such an interesting field here in terms of like how you use it. So did you sort of have like one subscription for one brand? Did you include multiple? Did you do anything in terms of monthly, yearly? How did you go about like creating these sort of subscription offerings for your audience?
So let's say I'm going to jump way back now. Like Delfi is now 25 years old, just 2 months ago or something. A while ago, we just did 25 years. And Delfi sort of started out as an aggregator. So in common sense, like what we would do is just take different places of news and present it in a way that readers at that point really liked, because it was one place to put it together. And actually, we were acquired on the print side. So the owner still, who has a background in editorial, like from the print side, he purchased the digital platform and sort of merged it together, but still keeping it sort of separate. But now at least the news that we were presenting on the page, that was like from the same company, same background, same logic. And let's say that worked for a while, because that was when the advertising was still like the main revenue driver. Everything was sort of, I think, like looking back, I think that was a mistake that everybody was doing. like thinking digital news should be sort of free, should be advertisement monetized rather than already then getting user data, already then working on a lot of this. But of course, hindsight is 2020. And then at one point, again, we moved over to like, let's say subscription, but it was subscription like everybody, I think still a lot of companies are doing, where you would subscribe to a digital sort of newspaper. And of course we did like iPads and all of these sort of things. And then the same owner purchased magazines as well. And then we put all of those into our, like, we had some of them already like references already in our portal before then. But then because we had like 12 different brands, or I think at that point even maybe 14, something like that already. And then it got really complicated already, because then we had like, let's say from the internal side, we had like people who were sort of focused on these brands, people who were focused on getting those subscribers and so on. And these sort of things were a mix. So that means in a meeting, we didn't really focus on sort of, again, like I said, like the 100,000, it was already before we set that goal, but it wasn't a narrow thing that we could really focus on. And that meant like we had a lot of overhead. And then when we looked at the like customer side of the things, it didn't feel like it was unified. So let's say you came to our portal, you went to, let's say, Eesti Express, one of our newspapers, and you thought you had a subscription, but you had a subscription for that. And then you were like, and it just sort of made sense because we had so much news that we were doing and we had so much different brands to put it into a single package. And I think now we did that move, let's say, 7.5 years ago. So let's say, again, I would think like we were one of the first movers in sort of bundling everything together. At that point, of course, you could still purchase individual subscriptions, but that was when we really started to focus on a single product. And that meant like the people internally, again, it saved so much time, because like, okay, this is the package that we're focusing on, this is the package that we're going to have on the paywall, this is the package that we're going to do a nicer landing page, this is the one that will market, this is the one like so it took a lot of this away from internal, like let's say even cost, time spent, and all of these like internal metrics. We don't track them that much, but you could see it from meetings. And of course, same for consumers. Then they clicked on a news article, they could actually read it. They didn't have to do an add on, like in mobile gaming, they have like DLCs and like all of these sort of things, and microtransactions, and you could just read. You had a subscription and you could just read. And I
This
think
is super. This is super interesting. And then sorry, Ivar, for my stupid analogies, but you initially created one ring to rule them all for everybody who knows sort of the Lord of the Rings reference in this case. But then, I sort of, being Norwegian, I think that you had like the likes of Amedia, Bonnier in Sweden. They sort of had like this bundling, the first one to do it, but it seems for me that you guys actually were earlier than them to actually start this. But then, did you face any challenges getting buy-in from like the smaller magazines and the others to sort of do like this one product instead of going on with the one-to-one thinking they've been doing? And how did you sort of, did they challenge you, and how did everybody get around this one product idea?
I think it's sort of, and again, it's hard to remember the like exact feeling, because like I think I would remember it probably more if it was a failure rather than at the moment like what we consider a success, because I think you then maybe forget about maybe some of the negative aspects of at that time, because I sort of got into the company at the exact same time when we were starting to bundle. So but in our case, I think actually, because again, then we moved into a single metric sort of thing, and we saw an increase in people who found value in that. And in most cases, because we bundled, I think they got more readers, and sort of like it sort of, I think it went into a success mode rather. So that means we instantly saw that it's sort of working rather than not working. And I think maybe I would say I think that's why I don't have like a lot of negative sort of memories from that place.
And sort of going into then, one thing is done internally, and it's amazing that you sort of got to get everybody around that. But then I think in what we see right now is bundling getting way more interesting for news publishers. I think it also has to do with meaning the readers, the consumers expect more out of the subscription. And now with bundling, that makes all the sense in the world. But then how was the reaction from the readers and then the progress of then people buying this new subscription?
That was sort of mixed because I think like one thing that I think maybe, and I don't know, but maybe should have moved faster was getting rid of the single subscriptions, because like theoretically, even though we were focused on this one thing, like for a year or so, you could actually still find a place where you could do a cheaper, only one print like subscription, not like print, but online print version of that one single thing. And I think maybe we should have been faster on that aspect, because we still had people who were, let's say, we were marketing a single package, but they weren't like moved over to this new package, and they still had, I don't know, their old package or this sort of thing. And I think we should have, let's say, more forcefully pressed them over to the single package, because they would still see like, okay, with this one package, you can read all Delfi news. And like we were marketing it like in this way, and they had a package, but they had a package that didn't allow them to do that. And I think this was sort of one of the confusion parts that it took us a while to understand that, okay, we should just get rid of them and move them over to this single package. And even if it's, I don't know, let's say in short term money loss, because you don't want to jump them to a higher tier that fast. And we sort of just gave them cheaper prices for a while just to transition them over, and they got more value from the same pricing that they had. I think that was one of the things that we saw, like, let's say, negative side of it. But in general, because I think because we were doing a lot of pieces of content, and I think that's one of the things that I think if you're a subscriber, you will find something to read. So from their like aspect, it seems like consumers are willing to pay when they get enough content.
Content is king in this game, and I find it very often interesting in terms of the question, have you ever found out that there was some content that maybe you, the newsroom, didn't expect would be converting new subscribers? Do you have any like examples from something that was like, wow, we didn't expect this to happen?
Yeah, I think we, and like for the people who were I think in this case in my presentation in Amsterdam, I think I have quite many examples of this. I think one of the interesting one is frisbee golf, where we did a live stream of if somebody doesn't know what frisbee golf is, it's like golf but with frisbees, and you throw it into a chain bucket or something like that. And I think that article of a live stream, it didn't have that many page views, but I still think that it has the highest conversion rate of any article that we have ever done, because it was a really, really niche audience, a really like targeted niche audience, and it didn't have scale. Like this article, I think it had like, I don't remember exact numbers. Let's say it was like 25,000 page views for this single like live stream article. Like nothing. It didn't reach anywhere near the top that week. And I think we got like 50 or 60 or something like new subscribers from that article, or maybe even more. Like a bit fuzzy on the numbers, but it was like, okay, like we do a lot of sports coverage, like different streams. We do a lot. Where did these people come? How haven't we reached these people yet? Because we have a lot of like sports coverage that are doing, and that means these were totally new people that we never reached. And I think the other sort of side where I think we were a bit amazed, but not because we didn't think it would work, but we didn't think it would work in these numbers, is when Ukraine war started, when Russia attacked Ukraine, then we sort of started working with these people who were doing like daily war reports on social media. And what we would just do is of course, they knew that we were doing it and we had agreements and everything, but we just took their Facebook post and put it behind a paywall in our news site. And like everybody could have gone to Facebook, could have gone to this person's page and read it for free. But we got like, let's say, a better one of these. And again, they were at the start daily, like got 20 new subscribers. So the second day, like, I don't know, 40, 10, 5, and it goes up and down like this. But like everybody could have gone to Facebook, could have gone to this person's page. It was a public profile and read it for free. And that was like, let's say, another one of these key learnings is, and I think like you're from the Nordic country as well, like if you have this trust, if you have this direct traffic, if you can do scale, if you can do, let's say in this case, in a really like, let's say, I don't know, clockwise and send a push notification to these loyal people that we have happily still like you can make a lot of content work that you don't think it will work. And I think one of the things that I try to always say is that when I hear people talk like, okay, we're doing this premium content and this premium content is behind the paywall, like I'm not sure if the editorial side is the one to decide what is premium content. Just like 2 weeks ago when I was in a conference, somebody said like, okay, like how to like, or let's say quality content. And I was like, I'm not sure if we are the ones deciding what is quality content. Like I know, of course, like we have content that takes like 4 months, 5 months to investigative journalism. And like, and yes, of course it's premium. Like I know it's premium because of the work hours. I know it's premium because of the new info, the revolution, like all of these things. But I cannot say that an article that I don't care about and I see it hitting top 10 readership, having subscribers, having like huge engagement, huge volume of comments, I can't say that it's not quality content. I can't say that it's not premium content because it's premium for somebody. Like somebody finds it valuable because they're subscribing and the subscription is gonna stay for a while at least. And like engagement time is nice. So like, isn't that like the metrics for quality?
This is really, really like we're getting to a point here, which is fantastic. And just want to say, like the example here with the frisbee golf, maybe being an edge case, but then I think sometimes you get very caught up if you look at the data that you maybe keep on writing the same thing because you have data indicating that that's gonna make it work. But then getting into these new content types and I see, wow, there is some real interest there for this. But then you got into here like the decision of if some content should be premium or should it not be premium. And very often this is then decided by the newsroom. And I think this has sort of been the case, but now we see new technology out there that is sort of like dynamic, I don't know, paywalling and propensity modeling and so on. But then you really, it's what you said there, it's up to the reader to sort of decide. Could you just elaborate a little bit of how you guys think about this? Because I think this is very, very top of mind for many newsroom that's been doing subscription for a while now.
I hate is a really not a nice word to say, but I'd say I dislike the, let's say, metered paywall or metered paywall for like let's say in most cases metered paywall. I think there might be some ways to do metered paywall, and I think we are exploring a bit slowly in that field. But like we have a hard paywall. And that doesn't mean that like all our content is behind a paywall. I think we are now around 45, 47, something like that, of content behind the paywall. But we have sort of still to this point never done a metered paywall because let's say, of course, the other people like scam metered paywalls. That's one side. That's not the reason why I don't like it, but I think the reason why I don't like it is sort of like this content, we're creating it. There's work hours behind the content that somebody did work. Like, even if is a translated article, even if it's something like that, somebody did work. And sort of, if I don't know, you're not expecting other things to be free in life. Why would you think this part of the work should be free? And I think sort of that's, and we have different opinions, of course, inside the company as well. But if I'm only speaking for myself, then that's sort of one of the reasons why I really don't like meter paywall. So rather, like, if you already think that some consumer is willing to like pay for this content that was created, then why should some people get it for free? Some other people should pay for it, and then already the people who are paying for it, why should you offer it then to other people for free? Because somebody's already paying for this. So I think it's sort of, let's say, I don't know. That's sort of the reason why I'm not a huge fan of that.
I completely get it, but it's in everything here in life. It's working in software, then it's providing the value. Somebody might find the solution I'm selling too expensive or something, but then it's about then what did I do in the work of then creating the value from it. Many readers today have been used to getting news for free. It's also educating that some news we and the editors put a lot of work in, and there's then a reason why it is there. But it's also done here, I think, pointing into something very important. It's about the value for the readers, what they value important in this case, which is something really important. Ivar, I want to get into the next topic here, because we discussed a little bit of how you did bundling, the importance of then the content and so on. What I am happy every day to do is work with the data and insight in order to then drive towards a vision. Again, quoting Pitbull, short step, long vision. I think that's very, very important. And one thing I see very clearly, for example, in Kilkaya, where we delivered on dashboards for news publishers real time, is that sometimes it can be overwhelming with too many metrics. And you mentioned this already. And I think it's important to take a step back in terms of like, what is it that you're wanting to achieve? You said that one thing that was important for you guys was sort of like a North Star metric. And then one KPI was new subscribers. Very clear, very definable. Why was this the right approach for you guys? And then how does that apply to other publishers, you think?
I think it comes down to two things. Like, let's say, as I mentioned, sort of one thing that when I came here was managing data. And let's say what I wanted to achieve and what we're still like aiming for is actually to get all the time the let's say, and my team is not always like other teams are not always happy with my approach, because in a lot of cases, like, everybody thinks of a data team and what they're thinking about is a dashboard. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, if somebody's talking about data, what they mean is a dashboard. Like, well,
you're not wrong. This is so true, and it's so true. So you're the data guy. You make dashboards, right?
yeah,
I
exactly.
I heard this directly, and it's so far from reality.
Exactly, and I think I think that then the problem is then a lot of people go like this direction, because like they think like, and I've been lucky with let's say the other management people around me and the other teams, where they actually given like, let's say, maybe not so much compliant, but my head is a bit stone. I don't know what the complete expression in English is for that. Like,
I think it's even, I'm struggling. I think you're hard-headed. I think that's
hard-headed,
the right word.
Exactly, yeah. When I wanted to sort of do something, and the first thing sort of, I just mapped out everything, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go a similar way, like, let's say, Estonia as a country, like, we have X road. I think that we're quite proud of. Let's say in Estonian case, when you want to get like some medical data, then there's this X road, as I said, and it can take data from different like governmental places. Same for, like, let's say, when we're doing our tax returns. So we're doing it, I think last time I did it in 2 minutes or something, because I just click a button and then this X road goes to different places, takes this data and shows this data. And I think a lot of people go in a different direction, because they think that, okay, everybody's waiting on a dashboard that will solve all the problems. And once we get this dashboard, everything will be much better. And then they start working on a dashboard, and then they create this dashboard, and they do it really quickly because like they have the data and they're doing it, like throwing things together. And when I jump back, why I think lucky was that my team was given the time to actually create like the like foundation for it all. Uh, have time to actually clean the data, have time to actually take the data in, make sure that let's say pipelines, the funnels, like how the data goes through different phases, like before it actually reaches a dashboard. And in a lot of cases, like the process to actually get, let's say, to the first dashboard, it took us a really long time because I wanted to make sure when we're doing it that when I needed to do a second one, or if I want to use the same data in another dashboard, that like my system is scalable. And I think this is sort of a thing that a lot of people don't have sort of the, I don't know, are not headstrong in going through their like their plan, or like management wants to view a dashboard. And I think I think it's a bit wrong because it's so hard to scale and it's so hard to fix like these systems that are sort of built on brick by brick. But I get it. But I get why a lot of people are sort of doing it because, as you said, like, you're the dashboard guy, and if everybody expects you to do a dashboard and you're not delivering a dashboard, like, you usually get fired because like this is how your job is sort of I don't know, like like let's say evaluated, like. But yeah, so sort of long answer to that, like I would say.
I completely agree. And then I think one of the things that very often when you're in that space is that journalists, especially, and you work very often with the journalists down in Delfi, is that you don't always they don't always love being told what data to look at. And how did you sort of make data something useful for them rather than them resisting? You talked a lot about in the beginning a lot like the collaboration culture seems to be very strong in terms of them understanding what they need. Can you talk a little bit about how you sort of made the data available for journalists, and then instead of them resisting this is something that made it helpful for them?
I still think we haven't done a good job, but I always try to think that it has to be better. I have some ideas, hopefully that will make it better. But I think, like, let's say, if I scale it down, then I would say like there are really simple metrics I think that help. Like, let's say in our case, like focus on the subscriber, the 100,000. So like just a simple dashboard where article subscribers, and it's an easy metric, okay, my goal is this is what we have to deliver as a let's say department, this is what I hope to deliver, this is the metric that I'm hoping to aim, rather than like, I don't know, recirculation, page views, I don't know what every other nice keyword that everybody uses in order to make sure that their article is the best and the brightest and everything. And then you do a dashboard that has 100 numbers, and like you get confused. Like,
there will be so many. There will be so many colors. You would almost have like an epileptic thing happening.
Even if you're trying to do the simplest best thing, like it's complex. And then you're trying to do is these main things that I think provide on a really low level high value. And of course, you're then doing all the more complex, like scoring, like understanding different user needs, like how these articles are performing and focusing on them. But you don't need to sort of give those dashboards. Like, of course they can. Anybody has access. Like, we're trying to be as transparent, like with our dashboards and data and everything as possible, because like everybody should have access. But we're not sort of pushing them to view these dashboards, but rather we have a person whose like responsibility is to check it over, then like somebody who has time to actually go into these numbers, and then that person is communicating these numbers rather than everybody going and viewing all of these colors, the scorings, and the millions and millions of other KPIs that we're not sort of showing and throwing down everybody's sort of throat. And I think that's one of the things.
I'm just curious to this, Ivar, because I've seen this a little bit in the subscription space, and I almost sort of do like the analogy with being in a relationship with this, because when you start doing subscription, you sort of have the boom and you have the KPI new subscribers. It's the boom and you feel great. It's amazing until churn. Churn hits and it's almost like a relationship. The person seems fantastic, and then you're seeing these sort of things that I didn't know that about the person. Okay, I can deal with that, and you sort of have to work more to sort of keep that going. It's a little bit like that, but then you have that new subscribers. I mean, when churn hits, I mean, are you doing some changes into sort of the data that you look into, for example, with retention? Talk a little bit to now the KPI North Star goal, new subscribers, but are you doing any changes to, for example, the insight and data that you look into in order to keep up with this new thing that's maybe not the new subscribers, but keeping your subscribers?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the same sort of point where I still think that this is also split. So I think in our case, a lot of, let's say, journalists, they don't know about churn. Like, that's not their metric. That's not their sort of to take care of. Again, because we want to show them, like, you're the person who sort of is bringing in new people. And then the business side, we have a really, really great business development team. Really people who are like understand perfectly how to, and again, testing different things, and like really, really lovely job. And their focus is on churn. Their focus is on, let's say, bringing additional people from marketing, bringing additional people from some, I don't know, partnerships and all of these sort of things. And they're the ones that are worrying about churn. These like, and their goal is to like expand the lifetime value, expand or lower the churn and all of these sort of things. Because journalists, like, there's not that much that they, well, of course they can do great content, but like great content without a good placement to display it or wrong time or all of these sort of things that they don't, in a lot of cases, don't have influence on. So like we have separated it sort of, and these people are working on, like, let's say, I don't know, when you're trying to cancel, like, are we giving you an offer? What sort of offer? How many times are we sending you a newsletter? How much are we talking about our values? How much are we sending, I don't know, the editorial welcome, like these sort of things, and push notifications, like a lot of these sort of things to make sure that we're somehow communicating the values and the scale that we can offer to this reader.
Ivar, I have to ask, again, with your title, Chief AI and Innovation Officer, and we can't have a podcast without sort of asking the role of AI. What do you feel in media today? Where do you see the biggest impact in terms of AI, and like in your role today, how are you implementing AI in the newsroom today? Can you just talk a little bit into that right now, and maybe also getting into what you see for the future? So it's future outlook time.
Yeah. I would say today, at least on our side, we're focusing a lot on editorial, let's say, optimization tools. And in these cases, it's not about, like, I don't know, let's say, losing workforce or replacing it with AI or something like that. It's more to do, I don't remember exact quote, but like the logic, what a journalist sort of should be doing. And in a lot of cases over the years and years and years, when we digitalized everything, I think in a lot of cases, what a journalist sort of does most of their day isn't the like journalism part. It's adding, I don't know, some in the like in our CMS, adding audio file to this article, finding a gallery, making sure, I don't know, some X, Y, and graphics are inside there, doing a poll, should there maybe be a live blog here? A lot of this sort of work that's sort of not the like journalism in a sense. And I think like what we're focusing now is sort of optimizing the parts that I think slow down the work of a journalist. So let's say an easy case where I was like, okay, yeah, probably some people might need it because I know there's like tens and tens of transcription like platforms out there. Like, of course, everybody already has a platform like that. And when, like, let's say one of the most successful things that we did was a transcription tool, internet transcription tool that just posts it local, is fast, does an okay job, that has like both the like normal transcription and like cleaning up using AI and all of these sort of things. But again, simple tool that just functions, and like huge volume of users are using it. And sort of it's like in my case, because I'm a technology person rather than maybe anything else, then from my point of view, it sort of amazed me a bit, because I'm like, I don't know, there's like platforms and platforms that anybody probably think they have it already. And I think these sort of things are things that I'm sort of looking at, let's say, a different angle, where I'm trying to think that, okay, even if I know this thing exists, this one example showed me that that means like probably other people are not using the same tools that I'm using just for my everyday life, because I don't know, they don't know what's the correct one, they don't trust, and so on and so on. So I think this is like, let's say, step one. And then we did like, let's say, translation tool, because as I mentioned, like we are in 3 countries, just to make sure that every country can see what other countries are doing, just the feed that's translated into local languages. And of course, files and everything, again, like adding these different features. Uh, and at the moment, like a lot of things that I'm working on is automating this, let's say, like how content comes in. So let's say we did a very basic thing with weather reports and automated them. And now, just basically this week, I was working in a lot of like if a court case comes in and how to notify these people and give a quick summary and some bullet points there. So if they want to go in and look it over, they can. And the same goes for like governmental documents, because in a lot of times it's, yes, of course, there's a place where you can get it, but like, okay, so who should be the people who just have a tab open, or like 7 different tabs in Estonia cases for the governmental documents? Or maybe I can get this data and put it together in, I don't know, a Teams chat even, or like just like in a lot of cases, really, let's say, simplified tools that, yes, use AI in order to, I don't know, to summarize to PDF, I don't know, like like basically summarization, but PDF, like even the like what's OFR, or like just getting text out of the PDF basically, and this sort of functionality. And then on the other side, I would say are the things that we hope to do on the portal side. So in this case, a bit slower. And I think why it's slower is twofold. One is the, let's say, when we're talking about language, then the Estonian part in the language models is not that nice yet. It's in a lot of cases it's like Est-English, as we call it. So we're trying to add sort of example articles, but it's still a bit rough. So we're working on that a lot. The other thing why we're not sort of full scale on the front end, sort of experimenting on users is, let's say, I think a lot of times people are doing it for the sake of everybody else doing, as you sort of mentioned. And I think one of these things is like, yes, from a consumer's point of view, AI search, for instance, in news portals, what they're doing, or these chatbots, and yeah, it makes sense on the user side of the thing. But let's say there's a cost behind doing this. It's not cheap. And then my question is, okay, where's the money coming in from? Okay, we'll get new subscribers. And then you're looking at the numbers and you're saying, I haven't seen that much growth in the people who are experimenting. Okay, let's just add one ad here. I'm like, yeah, but previously we got like 7 impressions.
I think you're pointing into something really important here. That is like, how does it equal to revenue also in the end of the day here? But then the sort of AI part right now, it seems like how to become more efficient in your everyday day-to-day work. So one example would be, for example, you said like documentation from what's happening around you maybe took 1 to 2 hours to figure out. How can you shorten that by getting it directly to the hands of the journalist, and a lot of that work. If you, again, talking to sort of like that operational part inside, and then I think you're right. It's sort of like you're going slow using AI in terms of front of the user, like a slow but of a show, slow but of a show. But then again, on this case here is if you, one thing that I very often talk with publishers about is this allowing personalization of content on, for example, the front page. The front page becomes way more important these days. And you can at least throw in an AI model that is learning, but if you put that on the top, that's, I find, a little bit crazy, because this is where you need to have also maybe not the content that's just booming is what's important in this case. Yep. But then I am making a big part here in terms of how content is being presented to readers. And right today, it's content being presented in sort of articles and so on. Do you think that sort of what do you think is the future in terms of AI there, in terms of how content is being presented and consumed, if you were to do an outlook on that?
Yeah, I think you sort of pushed on a really good point. Is there, like, we don't want to ever become like social media when we're trying to push somebody in a bubble. But I think the important part is still like personalization, but I'm not 100% yet sure the personalization will come in like in a way like what news article we're presenting, but how can we use the same content in multiple different ways? So let's say if somebody already created an article, how can we do it in audio format? How can we do it in a video sort of slideshow format? How can we, I don't know, have an avatar doing a news report, whatever it might be. And then let's say if we do this single piece into multiple formats, maybe we should display it for different users in different ways. So let's say classical readers or our most loyal long-time readers, maybe they are already totally happy with the way our portal is looking, how we're presenting, and not change anything for them. But there might be and I know there's a huge people who just want really quickly TikTok style, whatever it is. And rather than maybe changing the content that we're displaying to them, rather just change how we're showing this content. So when you're a more audio video focused person, then maybe your app should be highlighting the possibilities of audio video. If you're a more, let's say, short reels, whatever person, maybe you choose this option where it's more TikTok style, quicker, just to get an overview, some summarizations at the start. Like, I think this is thing that I think we'll start moving a bit faster at one point, but I think in a lot of cases the technology is not quite there yet. But I think we sort of have to, I don't know, tip our toe into and have preparedness for when the technology hits it's a better place to sort of be ready for it.
Makes completely sense. Ivar, we're coming to the end of this, and I'm thinking already about the next podcast we have together, but that time it's at your place. I get another microphone, you make me a pizza at the same time. But then coming to sort of like conclusion on these different things is that still, I mean, on the case, I'm going back to the thing I asked you, a lot of publishers are stuck still at the maybe 1% of digital penetration in their subscription, and that being good for many countries. If you were to give them one piece of advice, what would it be from the learning you made?
I think sort of scale up the percentage of paid content. I think in a lot these companies that are, I think, struggling with, I think a lot of times their readers are not presented that much with a paywall. I think sort of like the consumer has to, like, they have to see a relative amount of times a paywall in order to actually become a subscriber. And I think this is where I see a lot of people still on the older mindset where like they don't want to put as much content behind the paywall for users to actually see or like see that there's a lot of content that they're not accessing. And I think a lot of times they're afraid that, okay, our competitor will have it for free. But at least in the Estonian case, we saw that like the competitors will usually follow, because they will see that, okay, maybe the market is moving this way, and like hopefully it sort of should raise all the boats, because like people should pay for like journalistic work. And I think like don't sort of like do a price war. Like I think that's the best thing to ruin a market is a price war. So then don't undercut your competitor, because that will never reach a good place.
Looking back to doing sort of the bundling, doing the data, going into then creating the content, as you said, is there anything that you would have maybe wanted to have done differently if you could go back?
I think sort of what I alluded to a bit before was sort of moving over the people to the single package a bit faster. Maybe in a lot of cases, let's say, not that we want to kill print, but maybe we're in, and we just recently closed one of our daily newspapers, but maybe made moves faster there, because there we were also a bit like, it wasn't money losing, it wasn't sort of profitable, it was fine. And so we were afraid to sort of make these faster steps, because we were afraid like what will happen. And like in a lot of cases, we over thought what the impact, like negative impact for us would be. And in a lot of cases, these negative impacts haven't come true. So I think maybe these sort of things. And from our, let's say, print closure, like I think one thing important is if you're doing these larger steps, even if, I don't know, like you might just send 7 emails to everybody in the company, like start as early as possible, communicate these sort of things. Like even if everybody's not reading them or everybody's not that like caring, just to make sure that nobody's like, we did this, like just over communicate these sort of large changes.
We're at the end of the podcast, Ivar, and I'm sure both for me, but also the listeners have been finding this fantastic and maybe already taking some ideas with them. We have a closing tradition in this podcast, and you're now podcast person number 2 on this. So you're actually the first one that's going to get this. So I ask every time the guest to leave a question for the new guest without knowing who they are. And I think you maybe know who the last person I am. The first one on the part is Lars Jensen at Berlinske, where we talked about the user needs. And I think you guys met before. I'm just going to get my glasses here in my book to read it up for you. And it's a very deep... It's a yeah, we're gonna do that, and I have print in the background, as you can see as well. But then this is a quite deep one. And what would you like to be remembered for when you're no longer here? And he also applied to that is that no longer here could mean no longer in the job, no longer in a specific part of your age, or no longer here on the world. You can decide.
Okay. And I would say I'll try to narrow it, the thing down, let's say media industry, just to make sure that I'm not going to mention like family and my kids growing up and being successful and so on. What would I would say like internal hope sort of is, and now with this new job, I think one of the things is like sort of actually delivering a tool that like, and I don't want to say revolutionized maybe, but sort of just made sort of a huge jump in, let's say, archival usage and like increasing the, let's say, so memory. But in a lot of cases, like where I'm a bit annoyed is like, let's say a politician says something 2 years ago, and they might say it like 10 times and everything, but it's so hard for a journalist to sort of find this right quote in this right article. And sort of, I want to change that in a way that there's a simple way for us to go back 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Like we have a huge history, just to really easily get like, and I don't say sort of, I don't want to put them on a negative pedestal. It might be used for like same for like good things. Like somebody predicted something correctly, or somebody predicted something like totally correctly. A good example in Estonia, I would say like last year somewhere at the start, they were like, because Estonia is going to a thing that I'm maybe not the happiest with, but we're increasing taxes and so on to like basically defense spending, but all the other things as well. And then the like concert venue, like people were saying like, no top artist is gonna come to Estonia. Everybody's gonna go to Finland. And I remember this one article in my head. And this summer will be the most like international artist ever in Estonia. Like a lot of artists, like ECDC, first time in Estonia.
I'm coming to Estonia to go out with you on that festival in that case.
Perfect. And then I was like, okay, but like all the people, and the same for economy, the same politicians, like a lot of people are saying a lot of things, and nobody's sort of like going back and like putting this into a context of, I don't know, like, should we trust this economist person? Like, maybe he's wrong 90 times, but now everybody's thinking the economy is still bad. But he was wrong 90% of the time, but everybody remembers that single time when that person was right. Just to put this sort of context, I think maybe that's sort of one of the things that I hope to accomplish, let's say, on the journalism side here.
I think that would have immense value. Ivar, you get to ask a question to the next guest that I'm going to have on the podcast. What would you like that question to be?
Okay. Question for so I'm guessing again media focused show. Okay, I think maybe what I'm in a lot of cases interested in, because I mentioned like I have a media agency background and all of this sort of thing. One thing I think it has become more sort of a focus point in Europe as well is how to see like in 2-3 years the big tech role in the news industry.
This is going to be super interesting for the next guest. Ivar, thank you so much for your time. This has been fantastic, and you and me actually meet in Amsterdam at INMA. We play this on the Friday. I think the INMA event is now Tuesday next week, and hopefully this then goes out after that, because then a lot of people also will have heard you talk about this part, about the the amount of then readers that you have in Estonia. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you a great day. Thank you to the listeners and everybody. Tune in to this new episode very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.